In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
Why don't we talk more about the Tennessee men's basketball team? You hear Conzo Martin's music there. That's a little MJ. So we bring in Kent Williams. I'm not sure how much he likes Michael Jackson, but he joins us now anyway. Coach Vince and Ben here in Knoxville. How you doing, Coach?
Doing pretty good, guys. How are you?
Good. We offered this to Coach Webster. If you have any music preferences, any requests, next time we have you on, we can play whatever you want. Do you have any artists you'd like us to play?
No, it doesn't matter to me. You guys put on whatever you want for me.
All right. Well, looking back at the game, obviously you guys have analyzed film. You've talked about it. You discussed it with your guys. What do you attribute or put your finger on to the slow shooting start on Tuesday?
Well, I think the biggest thing was just rushing shots and not getting the ball in the hands of the guy we wanted to get the ball in the hands of. Our goal. And it's not a secret. Every game you want to go into, we want to get Jarnell as many touches as possible, and we had plays for it. And guys didn't really execute the plays to get them open and just to run them as crisp as you would like. And it happens like that early in the season. But even besides that, you still got to give them the ball, get them touches. But I thought we took a lot of quick shots early, and then sometimes, as you know, that can snowball on you a little bit when it gets 4 or 5 minutes in the game, you still only have 3 points on the board, and you kind of press a little bit. But yeah, I just think the quick shot selections and everybody that even came in the game, it seemed like everybody wanted to come in and get a shot up and get a feel instead of just allowing the game to come to them. And that happens when you play your first game of the season, especially being on the road.
Coach, you mentioned guys wanting to get a shot up. I guess my mind jumps immediately to Robert Hubbs. I know he probably wasn't pleased with his performance, his debut. What do you tell a guy like that? I mean, he's obviously a talented guy. He's going to get better, but what was your message to him after the game?
Well, you like his aggressiveness and his confidence. He's never came off the bench before, I'm sure, in his career, or at least in a long time. And just got to let the game come to you. You know, you can't check in the game and the first time down the court, chuck up a three with 27 seconds on the shot clock. Just got to, try to find your way to get in the groove of the game. And Coach pointed out to him, said, hey, you check in the game, you got a shot up. We still haven't got the ball inside the Jarnell yet, and that's obviously our number one goal. So, but he's going to be fine. He's a good offensive threat, but he just kind of has to get a feel for it and let himself get in the flow and get an easy bucket there, things like that, and then kind of relax and settle in. And then just like most freshmen, just got to really concentrate on defensive end. We wanted to play him more, but you're in the game. It's at the end, and he gave up. He got backdoored and gave up a three. So those 5 points he gave up in the second half, and you're thinking, man, you just can't give up any little ones here and there. So, but he came in, watched film. He's a smart player, and he's going to get better from it.
Visiting with Ken Williams, Tennessee men's basketball assistant coach here on the new Sentinel sports page. Coach, were Xavier's bigs better than you might have thought looking at them on tape? Were your guys surprised at all by how active and good they were inside?
I think they're as good as we thought they would be. I just think that we allowed them to get too deep a position. We allowed the big guy to go over his right shoulder and use his left hand every single time. And if you read our scouting report, it says make him use his right hand. Make him go the other way. I think he tried it one time, and he shot a reverse layup, and he flipped it over the backboard almost. So, the one time we did it right, he didn't score and didn't look like he had a chance of scoring. So it's more of just being disciplined. And I think our guys were getting a little caught up, worrying about how they're going to officiate the game. There's been so much talk about it here early on, and you just got to go out and play. Jarnell's two fouls he got weren't on the defensive end; they're on the offensive end. Charge and then pushing the back, going over the back on somebody. So they just got to go out, relax, and play the game the way they know how to play. And if they start officiating a certain way, then you got to make the adjustment. But I thought that we weren't as physical down low, and we allowed them to get deep position and got easy baskets out of it.
Are those calls, because a lot of people have pointed to those, is this emphasis in officiating and how they're calling the game this season, is that more of a disadvantage to Tennessee than other teams?
I don't think so. I think, just like anybody else, you just got to make adjustments, and even throughout the game or from game to game, it might be called differently. But, if you look at where they're calling the fouls at, it seems that it's going to be a lot of hand checks out there, and we're not teaching that anyways. I think you can still be physical in certain areas. the parts that, I think the biggest adjustment, everybody's wondering how they're going to call charges and blocks. And then, again, just the hand checks out front. So I really don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. You can still be physical in your right ways. Obviously we got two big guys with Jaron and Jarnell and even Pops coming off the bench. Big guys that can throw their bodies around. I think if you use your body and not so much your arms and your hands, you're going to be fine.
With the new fouls, I guess, being called the way they are, obviously Stokes was frustrated when he picked up 2 on the offensive end that, only got to play 5 minutes in the first half. It kind of seemed like after that he never really got a chance, even playing more in the second, he never really got a chance to kind of get into his rhythm. Is it more important now that guys can maybe have to hit the bench with some foul trouble and then come back in and play, I guess, kind of try to get things going again more so than it's been in previous years? And did you notice kind of, I guess, Stokes maybe having some trouble getting things going again once he was back in the game?
Yeah, and that's the case for a lot of guys. And even as a former player myself, you've been in that spot where, if you get 2 fouls and you sit, especially get them quick and you haven't even got any points on the board or, you barely got the play, and then you sit the whole first half, and then you just feel like you're not in the flow of the game. And we tried right off the bat getting them some touches early in the second half to get him involved and to get him feeling pretty good. And he got a bucket fairly early there on a nice drive. But, then again, he picks up a 3rd foul. And even though he got 20 minutes in the game, so he played 15 in the second half, just never felt like himself like we've seen him in the past. And, it was tough. And then once you don't get in the flow early offensively, then you kind of got to go to the guys that are doing something for you. You got to make sure you can't forget about Jordan. Mm-hmm. And he went through a stretch there where he didn't get some touches. And they did a better job of guarding him through that stretch. But, like I said, you're trying to get the ball to Jarnell, trying to get him involved in the second half, but it's tough. Josh came out, hit some shots. Barton came off the bench and hit some shots. So, we got some production offensively other places. Just where that first half, not really taking advantage of what we felt like we did on the defensive end to grow a lead, or at least to get a lead on them.
You mentioned Jordan. We've had people already saying today, seeing the way that he pulled you guys so close at the end of the second with those drives and how he can obviously, take over a game with his scoring at times. People are saying, well, why doesn't he do that from the beginning of the game? I guess, can you kind of explain, kind of what Jordan's mindset is and how you guys see him being a scorer, and kind of, I guess, what's the answer to that question that a lot of people are seeing after seeing what he can do in certain stretches?
Well, I think they're kind of figuring things out after one game. There has been games last year where he has came out and scored from the get-go. Mm-hmm. It's just, you're basing off one game where, nobody on our team came out scoring yesterday, and he had some shots. He had some looks from 3, and they didn't fall for him. Finally really made some good drives there late in the half and got all the way to the basket 3 straight times. And, I think one thing was, talking with Jordan, and we got to change the lines around, different things here and there, but I think it was clogged up a little bit early on with Jaron and Jarnell both out there, and just kind of getting a feel for it with having those guys on the court at the same time again. They kind of clogged it up, and then we went a little smaller, had some guys that stretched the defense a little bit more, and I think that opened up the driving lanes for him, and that's how he got going later in the second half, or in the first half.
Ken Williams joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports page. Coach, did you notice in that game Xavier having a scoring advantage in tough shots around the rim where you guys missed quite a few of those?
Yeah, definitely, and especially when you go back and watch film. But there was a couple times in the game where I thought we made a good run at them, and man, they just answered with a tough shot. The one that Christian hit, well, we had him dead in the water there, and there's 4 seconds of shot clock. He hits a fadeaway. He makes a tough shot. There was time where their big guy, we block his shot 2 times in a row. They have one guy walking off the court holding his elbow, and it's basically 1-on-5, and he still gets the ball back and scores it. There were some crucial plays like that they were just able to make the basket. I thought there was times at the other end where we didn't, and we had some good looks. I thought Jordan made a nice play hitting Jaron on the drop down pass late in the game, and Jaron got called for a travel. Them executing on theirs and us not was a big difference in it. But again, you're playing from behind, you're catching up. You got to get off to a better start, especially on the road. You don't want to try to play catch up on the road.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about Antonio Barton. Coach Martin said after the game that some of the things you were trying to do with him in the game were limited because obviously he hasn't practiced much since October 25th really when he was injured in that practice, but it seemed like he made some shots. It seemed like he kind of helped open some things up when he was running the point. What did you see out of him, and are you excited kind of for what you're going to see out of him moving forward as he kind of gets back into the lineup and could potentially start?
Oh yeah, I mean he's an explosive player and he can get points in bunches, and you saw that where he basically got 10 points really quick right there. And I know what coach is referring to is just keeping the play simple for him. He's missed I don't know how many days in a row, probably 10 days of practice, even though he's there watching and he understands the plays we're trying to run. But it's just if you don't actually go out there and run them yourself against live competition very often, you're not ready to do all that yet. So we kept it simple and ran a lot of motion with him in the game. But he'll get plenty of reps here in the next 2 days of practice leading up to our next game, and we'll get maybe give him a limited play calls to call out there for the game, but just to have some in his head that he can go right to and play with. So, but he's going to be fine. He played 30 minutes in the game, looked good out there, and we're excited for keeping him out there in the lineup.
Coach, as you can imagine, there's been a lot of discussion about the free throw shooting as well, with you guys going 7 of 19 from the line and it being such a close game. If you could, for our listeners that talk about the free throw shooting, explain, one, how unacceptable that might be to you guys, and two, describe how the kind of work you guys put into those free throws.
Yeah, and that's the part that's disappointing is you put a ton of work into it. We break and shoot free throws all the time in practice. Even the day before we left, Coach has a drill we do where you got to make 2 free throws, or you shoot a 1-on-1. If you make the first one, you shoot another one, you make it. No matter what, you take off and you sprint. So you're running, and if you miss certain shots, you got to run a little bit longer. So you're running and back to shooting free throws, and then you run again, back to shooting free throws, and you got to make a certain amount in a certain amount of time. So when we do a lot of drills with that, we break all the time, and our guys are tired and shoot free throws to do it while their legs are tired. So do it all season long. Do it in the summer, do it in the fall. So, but they didn't shoot free throws well either. I mean, it's kind of they gave us a chance by staying in the game when them missed some free throws too. But we just didn't take advantage of it on our end. But it's definitely unacceptable. I think sometimes I think it could have been a little bit of the first game jitters too. You're on the road. You stop for that first time in the game, you got to relax and trying to get your legs under you. It's not really an excuse, but sometimes that is the case early in the season, just trying to get back in the flow of shooting free throws at a game speed.
Is there someone specifically that keeps an eye or watches or teaches the technique, whether it's in practice or anything else, on those free throws, or is it a collective unit with all of you guys on the staff? It's
a collective unit, and Coach was a good shooter as well. Mm-hmm. And we all understand the game and understand how to teach it, and it's you're not sitting there at this time of the year trying to work on technique, where your elbow's at. That all happens in the off season. Mm-hmm. Your form. I thought a couple guys rushed it a little bit. Even the referee came over and said, "Hey, tell your guys they got plenty of time. Slow down, take your time, rest, and shoot them." But I think Jerron's was to be expected a little bit. He sat out all last year. Now it's his first game. He's a little rusty, especially with the touch on the free throws. So kind of. Not really surprised with that, but some of the other guys, yeah, we were.
Coach, you got another game, obviously, second game coming up Saturday against a USC upstate team that, probably, turned to raise a few eyebrows by beating Virginia Tech. I guess, kind of what do you see, after watching film, what are the main, I guess, top 3, top 5 points that you are going to stress to your team to make improvements heading into this game that you learned against Xavier?
Well, for Upstate, they're a veteran team. They got a lot of good players back, and they had a good season last year, especially in conference play. And they're led by their preseason player of the year in Torrey Craig, and he's a pro prospect. Our fans are going to enjoy watching him. He's a fun player to watch. He's got almost 1,600 points already in his career. He may already clipped it by now. And that's really just after 3 seasons. So he's going to be a 2,000-point scorer for their school, and he can score in bunches. He had 31 last night in their loss at Winthrop. But he'll shoot threes from deep. He's 6'6", athletic, gets in the lane. He can take tough shots. He can do a lot of things. Then they got another player that everybody's familiar with here in Ty Green, who's a very good shooter, very heady player, scrappy kid, going to get out there, dive on the floor, really understands the game well. Really, with those two guys, they're averaging 42 points between them. So they're kind of a two-headed monster at the guard right there. You really got to do a good job of shutting them down. They run a motion offense, so they get the ball moving. They're cutting hard. So it's a good matchup for us, and we're looking forward to it. We'll start working on today a little bit.
Coach, were you guys here already when Ty Green was a prospect for college at all?
He was already signed
Okay.
To go to USC Upstate when we got here. We got here in the spring of his senior year, and so yeah, he was already set on where he was going. So we heard about him right when we got here, but obviously he was already signed. And even just being a local kid, over the past few years, I heard people talk about him, and he's had a very impressive first 2 years at Upstate, and even a better start here, averaging 19 points a game after 2 games.
Now that we saw Antonio Barton play in the game against Xavier, will he start for you guys on Saturday?
I'm not sure what Coach is going to do with that. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, especially with him getting 30 minutes and looking fresh out there. And I think it'd be better for Darius to come off the bench and kind of get a feel for the game that way, especially as a freshman. But Coach hasn't made a decision on that yet. I might find out today in practice, though.